G'day everyone. I did a really interesting shoot with Kiara yesterday. It was actually at a lavender farm. It's a really big old vintage lavender farm here near where I live yesterday. So it was a promotional video for them. So I didn't do a behind the scenes as such, but I did obviously use Kiara in the whole shoot. And you'll see that shoot coming up where I'm showcasing basically this whole facility of the beautiful lavender farm and also Kiara walking through all that farm. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up. She looks just amazing in it. But I did sort of, during the day, think of a couple of things that I could share with you guys. And one was to show the amazing, incredible dynamic range that the a7 III can give you on an image. And there's a reason why I did that. I wanted to show you that if you didn't have a flash, and you wanted to expose for the highlights, that you could still get a really usable result. So I thought I'd show you this image and explain what my thinking was. So this is the image that we're looking at here. Let me just go to develop module. So you can see at the moment there's no changes actually put in at all on this image. Now the thinking here was, and I'll just explain what's going on here, is that there was a pocket of light just above these trees which are sort of arching around Kiara. There is a pocket of light above which is letting the sun come through, and you can see where that's hitting down here and also on Kiara's face and areas like that. So what I've done was, I knew because of the dynamic range that the a7 III could give me that I could bring those shadows back later on. And this was just a complete experiment to show you how I could do this. I wouldn't work this way, but I wanted to show you what is possible with the dynamic range of the a7 III. So that's what I was thinking. Now I could have done this completely different, obviously. I could have moved a flash in and then expose for the ambient. So basically expose for this and then put a flash onto Kiara and then light her up and balance her between the background and the foreground. So that's one means that I could have done. The other thing that I could have done was actually this, and I could have moved Kiara into the shade, so out of that sun. So you can see where the sun is hitting right behind Kiara, just down here. So now she's moved forward away from that. And then basically what I do is I just balance the ambient and Kiara together because she's sitting in that ambient exposure. And I'll just quickly show you a quick edit that we can do on this to get started, and then I'd take it into Photoshop. But basically what we can do here is I can lift up the exposure a little bit. Now you can see that I've got the clipping highlights on. They're up the top up here, so if I want to take those off I can. And then I'm just going to bring the highlights back down and get an exposure there. I'm just going to raise the shadows just a little bit just to lift Kiara out of that background. And then I'm also going to hit with a little bit of vibrance. And then that's giving that lovely color in the background. And then I may even go down to here and lift the greens up just a touch here in the background as well. Now that's sort of a really good grounding. I could even add, if I wanted to, a little bit of clarity, but that's given a real good grounding for where I could take Kiara then and retouch her later on in Photoshop. Do obviously a little bit of skin softening, frequency separation and things like that. But it's a lovely start. So that's one way you would tackle this, just moving Kiara out of the sun and then exposing everything for the ambient. But I thought that I'd show you in this case something a little bit different, where I've exposed basically exactly for the highlights around Kiara's face. So I've had her pointing her face up into the sun, and I've let the background go. So I'm only exposing here on the highlights, and you can see how it's even kept the background in there as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to edit this and show you what is possible. Now, I'm not saying that this is an image you would use, but I'm just showing you what is possible to do with something like these Sony cameras, which, like I said, the dynamic is just nuts. So let's basically, I've created a duplicate here, and then I'm going to edit this with you and show you what we can basically do. Now, because the highlight warning is on, I'm going to lift the exposure on this. Oh, I think I've turned it off, have I? Oh, no, it's still not there. Yeah, so I'm going to lift the exposure until I'm starting to see the highlight clipping, as you can see there in the red. I'm then going to drop the highlights down to get a usable exposure again. And I'm going to do that a couple of times until I get a result that I'm actually reasonably happy with. Now that's pretty good. You can see now how she's starting to be lifted out of the background. And then if you wanted to also, you could also drop the whites a little bit. But what I'm now going to do is open up the shadows, and you can see the second that I open up the shadows, the background is starting to appear all over here now. So you're starting to see the detail that is in those areas through here. And again, if you're finding that the highlights are becoming a little bit too hot, you can drag that down a little bit until you get the right sort of highlight reading that you're happy with. I'm going to come down here and also lift up the greens a little bit, just to give it that saturation in the greens. And then I'm also going to lift a little bit of the vibrance as well. Now, you can see there that I'm quite happy with that. Now, it is a usable image. And then you can obviously take that image then into Photoshop, which is what I've done here. And that's the final result that I've actually ended up with. And that is a usable image. Now, I'm not saying that that is what I wanted to do and I would submit that as a client file, but this was just to show you what is possible with the dynamic range that you can get from the a7 III cameras. You know, when you think you're starting from this and getting to this, and that's only in Lightroom. I mean, it's up to you whether you like that muted color that I've done in Photoshop or whether you like that vivid. I think actually I may even like that one a little bit better. But it's just showing you what is possible with the dynamic range in these cameras. It's nuts. You can see it's got the blue area because I've got that dialog box up there showing the clipping. You can see how it's got the shadows actually showing there. And it has given a really workable image just in Lightroom. So let me know what you think about that down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'll see you all again soon for the next video. Bye for now.